All right, welcome back to the Comics Multiverse. Today, my guest is Wes Molebash. I talked to him about 4 years ago, after uh, during that crazy pandemic time, we at that time we talked about his webcomic, Molebashed, which I found a couple years before on Kickstarter, which was about his life as a father. And then since that time, he's come out with two graphic novels from First Second. Uh, and so I figured what better time to have him back to talk about him. So let's bring him in and find out what he's been up to. Hey,
Hello.
Wes, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Like I said, it's been too long, but I'm glad we're finally back. And now you have more to talk about. But
Yeah.
before we get to that, tell me about your history as a comics reader or cartoon reader, and as a creator.
Well, I'm a child of the 80s and I was a teenager during the 90s. So I grew up reading the comics pages in the newspaper. And so that was sort of my intro into that world. In the early 90s, I discovered, like during my preteen years, I discovered Calvin and Hobbes. And that was pretty life-changing for me, and as it was for a lot of cartoonists of my generation. And then in the mid 90s is when I started, um, I had an interest, I became interested in comic books like DC. I was a DC
Hmm.
guy. And that's around the time I also discovered Bone by Jeff Smith. And it was
Okay.
the, that was really influential because it was the kind of storytelling I enjoyed, but it was in that comic book format. And that was just magical to me. I'd never experienced anything like that before. So it was very
Hmm.
special. And so, yeah, that was the beginnings of that. I tell, when I do presentations to schools and stuff, I always tell the kids the story about how I first learned that being a cartoonist was a job. I learned it when I was 9, while I was watching a behind the scenes featurette for the making of The Little Mermaid, and they were interviewing
Hmm.
Glenn Keane. And that made me want to be an animator. But I started drawing my own comic strips like in 5th or 6th grade. And my dad's like, you should focus on this because it would be all you instead of you working for a company and having to do it their way. You could make a comic strip. And I like that idea. So
Yeah.
that's sort of my love for reading comics kind of naturally led into this uh, love for making them. And then there's some overlap there. But yeah, that's what it was all kind of happening there in the early to mid 90s.
And like I mentioned in my intro, my first introduction to you was your webcomic, Molebashed, which
Mhm.
was kind of your experiences as a father.
Yeah.
Was that kind of your first foray into getting stuff out there to the general public?
No. So, I mean, going way back, I had comics. I would draw comics in elementary school, take them to school, and my teachers would fawn over them, which made me feel great. In high school, I had a cartoon in the newspaper, the school newspaper, and then eventually the local newspaper picked it up. So I had a cartoon in our local newspaper for about a year. And then in the early 2000s, I drew a web comic called You'll Have That, with a small comic book company in Texas. I don't think they're around anymore. They're called Viper Comics. Um, but that was a lot of fun. For several years, I was drawing the comic for them and learning a lot about the industry. It was fun. It was very educational for me. And I made like hardly any money. It was awesome. And so I did that. And then I ended You'll Have That and did a few different web comics of varying success. In between You'll Have That and Molebashed. Molebashed was pretty special. That was about my first year being a dad. And then following Molebashed, I had at that point as 2 boys. I had the young kid that's in the baby that's in Molebashed was 3, and I had a 1-year-old, and this would be like 2017. And I realized I didn't have anything just for them. I didn't
Hmm.
have any comics that I had made just that I thought specifically my boys would enjoy. And so that's where I came up with the idea for the new graphic novel series, which I'm working on now.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Give us kind of like an overview of the series and what it's about.
Yeah. So it's about this kid named Travis Daventhorpe. Um, it's a people ask me all the time where I came up with the name. It just popped in my head. I think it's funny sounding. It's a mouthful, and I think it's a great name for an awkward kid. And he is that. He's a socially awkward, very smart kid, but has a hard time making friends because he tends to come on too strong. And he discovers that he's the legendary hero of a kingdom in another dimension, and he has to learn how to fill those shoes, and he's not good at it. And so over the course of this series, we see him develop his abilities and learn more about the prophecy and what he's supposed to do to save the multiverse. And yeah, it's sort of a love letter to all my favorite genres of storytelling: video games, Lord of the Rings, all that good stuff. So
Now I know Travis is the main character, and I was looking through the first book again, and I love how you have like you introduce the characters and they have like their stats and
mhm.
stuff like that. Who else is in his world that he interacts with?
So Travis is the main character. He's got his he's got two best friends, I should say. I guess he's got one is Travbot, which is a robot he invented. And Travbot's a really loyal, kind friend. And then there's Juniper Reyes, who's a new girl at the school in the first book. And she's also very intelligent, like Travis, but she's much more confident in herself. And um, in the first book, it takes a while for them to uh, to mesh well together. But by the end of the book, they're pretty good pals. And then there's Belazar, the Bright Mage, and he is the Gandalf type character. He's the guide who's helping Travis discover who he is and what his role is. And Belazar is a rather complex character himself. He's probably my favorite character in the series. But those are the main characters.
Mhm. And so, are they? It seems like they're kind of based on other characters out there. But is there maybe one of them that, as you've written them, you've kind of grown to like, want like them more and want to kind of expand on their story uh, at the same time that you're focusing on Travis and his adventures?
It would be Belazar. The third book, which I'm working on now, is it's Belazar's story. It gets
Hmm.
into him. He has a bit of a conflict in of his own that he has to kind of work out and parse out while Travis is fighting a battle, um, and it's pretty personal. I'm really, really proud of the story that we've done with Belazar, especially in this book. Um, and it's one that I didn't anticipate coming out in this kind of in this format, I guess. But I'm very proud of it. I think it's. I look forward to. I hope that kids read the book and they have a blast reading it. And so far, that's been the feedback. The kids are really enjoying it. But I hope that
Hmm.
parents read it with their kids, and maybe they can be touched a little bit too by some of the concepts, because it's I we're talking about some kind of heavy um, issue, mainly like faith, matters of faith, and what faith
Hmm.
looks like, and that's sort of the overarching idea, I think, over the books in the series. And I'm trying not to be heavy-handed, or, I'm not trying to evangelize or anything like that. But I do hope it creates moments for parents to talk to their kids about some stuff, or even for parents to chew on some new ideas that maybe they hadn't considered before, and kids too. But I don't know. And book 3 especially. Book 3's got some personal stuff that I've kind of gone through in my own spiritual journey. And I hope that I think there will be readers who read it and will identify with the journey that Bella goes on.
Nice. And so you said that there's another volume, and is do you have like a finite story, or do you have adventures that you just want to kind of keep after you tell the stories that you want to, the story you want to tell with Travis and his journey? Are there other stories within that universe that you'd like to tell, or
Yes and
kind of?
yes. The third book will be the final story or final book in this part of the story. And if things go well, I'd love to do more.
Mhm.
I'd love to expand on the characters. I'd love to do a spin-off where we give, like, I think Juniper is a really cool character, and I think she'd do well with her own series. I think Belazar, like I told you, is a really cool character, and he would do well with his own series and get to know more about him. It's a very big world that I have kind of realized in my head, and there's a lot of room to play. So if things continue to go well, hopefully we will see more Travis and his friends down the line.
So, okay. So as a going from this the first series, the first book was your first graphic novel. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how was it going from, say, let's say, your stuff is doing a web cartoon to the graphic format or the graphic novel format, and with the second and third one coming, how have you kind of grown as an art creator in that during that time?
Mm-hmm. That's it was very daunting. Honestly, I put off doing a graphic novel as long as I could. When I originally pitched this idea, I did not want to pitch it as a graphic novel because it just seemed like way too much work. I didn't think I could do it. I had a lot of self-doubt. I was used to 4-panel comic strips, 6 or 8 if I want to do a Sunday style, and I was pretty good at that. So the idea of trying to do a 180-page graphic novel just seemed, I'd say it was impossible if I didn't know people did it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But so when I pitched the idea originally, I pitched it as a picture book, and then I pitched it again as like an illustrated chapter book, kind of like Captain Underpants or the Last Kids on Earth books, if you're familiar with those. Tons of
I- I'm
illustrations.
familiar with I'm familiar with Captain Underpants. My
Yeah,
7-year-old is in his Captain Underpants
yeah,
phase.
perfect. Yeah, so exactly. So like every page there's a drawing, and so I want to do something like that. That seemed doable, and it just got to a point where, um, publishers were passing, and I said to my agent, "Do I need to just bite the bullet and make this a graphic novel?" And she said, "Well, let's give it a try." So we just picked one scene, and I penciled 16 pages, and it just flowed, man. It was just, I knew right away this was what it needed to be. And so we pitched it as a graphic novel, and the rest is history. And so, I was afraid of doing a 180-page book, and I ended up making a 288-page one, 2 of them, and I'm on my way to a third. So, yes. So like the first book, went through all these different iterations and finally came out. And now with the editorial team and that I have now, we've got a pretty good system, I think. And so the books are, they come together. We've got a pretty good system for how to crank them out. I will say this third book is taking a lot longer than the last one, and I'm blaming that on the promotion for the first book that I've been doing, and now the second book. I didn't anticipate all these school visits and bookstore stuff and festivals. I didn't anticipate those cutting into my drawing time as much as they have, but they have absolutely stalled me out in many ways. So, but we're getting there. We're getting the work done. But we have a pretty good system. We've developed a pretty good a formula for putting these books together that make it so much more digestible.
And so how long, I mean, when you're, drawing, do you draw digitally? Do you kind of work on paper first and then move to digital?
I tell you what, man, with the way, with as fast as they want books, I don't, you have to work digitally. Like, it's just, I don't know if you follow my Instagram or anything, but yesterday I posted a picture about, I was at I took my son to soccer practice. And while he was at soccer practice, I had my iPad in the car and I was working on pencil revisions while he was at soccer practice. And I can't do that. I was thinking about that last night. If I was working traditionally, I would be so much farther behind on my deadlines than I already am. And it's disgusting to even think about how much fun. I mean, it would just be horribly inefficient. The digital drawing, still as good as it is, in my opinion, it's still missing a little something that traditional art has. I don't know, there's something organic and authentic about traditional art that just still has an edge over digital art. But the efficiency of working on an iPad has just, I can't see myself going back anytime soon to traditional art.
Mm. I can see that. Um, so you've kind of talked about what's in store for the next series or the next book. What was it? How has it been working with First Second Press? I mean, if I'm correct, I know they do a lot of the young reader graphic novels, and I mean, it's the perfect fit for your series.
Yeah. They do a lot. They do a lot of middle grade stuff, like what I do. They have a lot of adult graphic novels, a lot of nonfiction. They have this great sort of American civics. I cannot remember the title of the series, but there's one on free speech that's really, really good. But lots of really cool stuff. And I'm honored and flattered to be a part of their stable of talent. And they've been awesome to work with. I've been very, very pleased. My main editor, her name is Robin Chapman. She's awesome as heck. There's a guy named Michael Macchio he's like a freelance editor, and he's been pretty much the main guy who's helped kind of drive and help me write and create the stories. And he's been an absolute blessing. Like, sometimes I think a large part of the reason these books are as good as they are is because of Michael and Robin's guidance on this, and art direction team, everybody out there. They're just really, really great, really, really cool. And I really, really am hopeful that I can make books with them for a long time, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, do you have time to play 5 questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Uh, Question number one. I know you've kind of talked about you know, the cartoonists that you've grown up. Which cartoonist would you put on your personal Mount Rushmore?
I would put, I think, well, we'll get Bill Watterson out of the way.
Yeah.
I would put Charles Schulz. Charles Schulz has influenced me somewhat as a cartoonist, but I think mostly as just a person.
Hmm.
I'm absolutely fascinated by him. His love for making comics, I totally identify with, and yeah, he's just awesome in that regard. I would put Michael Jancy on there, who is the cartoonist of a comic strip called The Norm, which I'm absolutely in love with and have been for a long, long time. He's a brilliant cartoonist. James Burks, who's the creator of the Bird and Squirrel and Agent 9 middle grade books. He's also been a very important mentor for me. And then Jeff Smith, who creates Bone. I'd have 5 people on my Mount
Okay,
Rushmore.
that's right. Well, that's okay. We'll allow you 5. Okay, question number 2. I know work. You do yours is more creator owned, but is there any Marvel or DC character that would be a dream project for you to work on to put a spin on in your voice?
Yeah. Honestly, so DC and Marvel are both doing a lot of like middle grade versions of their characters. And, I'd love to do a Batman, but Batman's overdone. I think there's lots of people already doing Batman. If they asked me to, I wouldn't say no. Same with Spider-Man. Mike Mayhack, I don't know if you're familiar with Mike. He's the creator of Cleopatra in Space. He's been doing a series of Spider-Man middle grade books for Marvel. They're gorgeous. I think that'd be fun. My dream of all dreams is to work on Ghostbusters in some format.
Okay.
They already have their teams and stuff, but man, it would be a lot of fun to do something in that world. I've been a Ghostbusters fan, an unapologetic fanboy. They can do no wrong, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And I have just lots of ideas. I think I could add a lot to that universe. Even if they want to do something that's just for kids or something, I'm there. Let's do it. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, I'd read it.
Awesome.
Question number 3. Desert Island reads,
Ooh.
pick 5. I will allow full runs or like omnibus collections.
So, man, okay. 5.
5.
Okay, I'll take my Bone 1 volume edition. I'll take man, this is hard, man. I'll take Calvin and the authoritative Calvin and Hobbes and the indispensable Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay.
Those are both very impressionable. Of all the Calvin and Hobbes books, those 2 were very. So I'm at 3 now. And then I would add man, this is a good question. I've got so many books that I want to say. Let's say Blankets by
Greg Thompson.
Thompson. Yes, thank you. Great, beautiful book. And I don't think there's an omnibus, but let's pretend there is. The entire Scott Pilgrim series.
Okay.
Now put me at 5.
We'll staple some. We'll staple
we'll
all the books together for you.
tape it all together.
Yeah. All right. Question number 4. Are you watching any, shows now that you kind of are really digging on, or is there something? What shows do you like to binge if you binge shows?
Oh, I do. I go through there. It's feast or famine. So sometimes I'm too tired. If I'm going to watch anything like that, it's typically going to be after everyone goes to bed because a lot of the shows I like to watch, my kids are too young to watch them, and my wife has no interest in watching them, so I have to watch them on my
Me,
own. So,
same.
all right. So, so my favorite show of all time is Ted Lasso, and I will watch and rewatch that show. I'm very excited for the next season of Severance on Apple TV Plus. Have you ever seen that show? It's
No,
really good.
we just got Apple TV hooked up with our cell provider, so I'm working my way through Ted Lasso as we speak.
There you go. When you're done with that, watch Severance. There's one season. The second one's supposed to come out this year. It's been long awaited. But if you liked Lost or anything like that, where there's just all these little twists and every episode leaves you asking questions, it's great. It's great. There's that one. I'll tell you what, the last couple nights I watched the night before last, I watched A Quiet Place, the movie, for the first time. And I'm not usually a guy who likes scary stuff, but I thought I'd give it a whirl, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And then I watched A Quiet Place Part 2 last night just to have them all watched, and I might go see the new one that's coming out this year. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been watching here lately. That's kind of owned my life. But other than that, I'm looking forward to the new Fallout show coming out. And what else?
Into Star Wars, or
the Star Wars stuff is I'm so behind on Star Wars that now I feel overwhelmed by it.
yeah.
I don't know where to start, and I never thought I would say this. I never thought I would say that there's too much Star Wars, but I think there kind of is right now. So, and Marvel for that matter.
I think I'm overwhelmed with the Marvel stuff. I just finished the second season of Loki, and I finally watched the Marvels since it's on Disney Plus, but I'm really looking forward to the Acolyte, the Star Wars Acolyte.
I've heard good.
That
I
looks
heard the
real,
trailer's awesome.
and because I think I've listened to some of the High Republic books, and those are interesting. It's a nice new divergence from everything, kind of tying into the original trilogy.
Right. Yeah. So that might be a one to check out. Kind of a fresh take on things.
Yeah. All right. Question number 5. How have you grown as a creator and a person as you've been as you've been writing more and more books and getting becoming more you know I guess used to the process and stuff like that, or have you grown as a person, learned something about yourself or
Yeah.
anything like that?
That's a big question. I mean, yeah, I was telling someone the other day that I'm just constantly learning something new. There's some new facet of the business of publishing that I'm learning. There are new ways of this business breaking my heart. You think you get used to, you develop a pretty thick skin, and then there's some new thing that you weren't even anticipating. And so now I think I'm learning, like, hey, you got to be ready for the things that come out of nowhere. And so I'll be better prepared for that stuff. It's definitely made me think a lot about my own mental health. I want to be, as much as I love making comics, and I want to make comics for the rest of my life, and I will in one way or another. It's imperative. Even more than that, but more than making comics, I want to be a great husband and a great father, and I can't do that if I'm, in a bad place mentally. So it's very important I take care of my mental health, and I do that by reading books and reading fiction and watching shows and playing video games and doing these things that I used to feel ashamed for doing because I felt like it was a waste of time when I could be drawing. But now I realize those are as important to the creative process as anything. And also they help my mental health. They help take, they're an escape, a little brief escape from the everyday life that when I'm done playing a video game session or reading my book for a little bit, you know, I can kind of go it gives me the opportunity to catch my breath and not think
Yeah.
about the things that feel insurmountable. And then you're done. You're like, oh, this won't be, it helps the anxiety a lot. So,
So what are you playing? You know, what are you into playing these days? Or even reading outside of what do you do for your cartoon or sorry your graphic novel series?
so right now I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, which is just an absolutely amazing. It's just the scope of this game is just blowing me away. I have a buddy of mine who's playing the game at the same time, and we're kind of around the same place in the story, and we're telling each other what we've done. And his experience in the game has been almost completely different than mine, just because he's making different choices and playing a different kind of character, and these things have turned. And I'm telling him things I've experienced, and he's like, we're just learning from each other, like the things you can do and we didn't know. And it's just really, really impressive how big they made this game. So that's been a game that's kind of owned me. My boys play Fortnite like crazy, so I've been playing that with them. They destroy me. And
Well, that's kind of the same with me. My son is into Minecraft, and so guess who had to play Minecraft in order to help him?
yeah, yeah, that's what. Well, wait till they don't need your help anymore. They just destroy you. There was like a period of 1 week where I was better at my kids than at Fortnite, and then now they're like, it's embarrassing. But I've been playing that, and those are the main two. Fortnite and the Baldur's Gate have been owning my life the most. But games that have definitely influenced Travis are like Legend of Zelda and Red Dead Redemption 2 in a sense. I've said in previous interviews, like it blows my mind how good storytelling in video games is. I just played through the second God of War game, and I cried a couple times. Like, it's so emotionally, like it's a fatherhood. It's Kratos being a dad and all the feelings of when your kid's growing older, and you got to let it, and like the feelings of the emotions he has of wanting to keep his son safe, but also knowing it's time to let him go. And I don't know, it hit me hard. So there's a few
Yeah.
moments in that game where I found myself very emotional, and I love that. I love that can happen. So I like those video games, and I've been reading a lot of. I like Brandon Sanderson a lot. I've been reading I think it's Rhythm of Wars, the fourth Stormlight book. The fifth one's getting ready to come out. Kind of slowly making, those books are huge, so I'm kind of slowly making my way through it. And then I've been reading a couple other things scattered among that, but the main one is that Brandon Sanderson book.
Well, as we kind of wrap up here, kind of give us a pitch for the book and where people can find you on social media, and they should, if they can't get the book through their local comic store, where can they get it?
Yeah. So the book series is called Travis Daventhorpe. The first book's called Travis Daventhorpe for the Win, and that came out last year. The second book, which just came out last week, is called Travis Daventhorpe Powers Up. And the third book in the story, and the final book in this series, is called Travis Daventhorpe Gets a Life, and I'm working on that right now. And the books that are available, you can get them just about anywhere. If your comic shop, if they don't have it, they can order it. Same with your local bookstore. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Target and Walmart and all those places online. It's pretty easy to find. You can find more information at wesmolebash.com, my website. I've got all my links to all the social media and stuff I participate in. It's all right there.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us about the book, and maybe when the third one is ready to come out, then we can chat again about it and about your overall, feelings of how the series works as a whole.
Yeah, I'd love
And ho-
that. That'd
and
be
ho-
great.
and hopefully it won't be 4 years.
Hey, well, that's all contingent on how fast I get this thing done, isn't it? So now the pressure's on me.
No, no. No, no pressure on you. We'll keep all the pressure on me so you can create.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time today, and it was great catching up with you. And yeah, we'll have to chat again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, man.
Thank you.